only can we use the body, the h1 tag, we can also get values out of the HTML elements using jQuery. We can add an element that has a value. Let's take a look at that. And let's go ahead and add a value to our initial yard time. And let's say our yard time is going to start out at 55.3 seconds. When I run that page, you can see ended up in my input box right away. Well, we want to use that value programmatically so that we can calculate our meter time. Well, we can get that value using the same concepts as we got the inner HTML. So let's use the jQuery. So we have a $, and then we need the pound to say we're going to use the ID. And what is the ID of this box here? Well, let's see. It's a text box, and it comes right after enter the swim time in yards. Okay, so here's enter the swim time in yards. The next thing right there is the text box with the value 55.3. So we need to use the ID from this element in order to get the value. Now, we're not getting the inner HTML. We're not grabbing everything between the tags. We're getting an attribute from the input element. And this attribute is called value, and jQuery has named that .val. So we can get that value by calling the val function, and we can store that value into a variable. I'll just call that variable yard time value. If I want to check if I got the right value, I can alert it. And I'll have to use concatenation if I want to put a label on it. And let's run that. So when I click on my button, the function convert to meters is going to run. And here's my function definition. It's going to get out that yard time value and alert it. And here is our 55.3. And we still have the to be implemented alert popping up. Since we're implementing it right now, I'll get rid of that. So here's the slide showing us we can get a value from an input element. We can do that using the jQuery with the tag and a .val. And that's a function call, so we put those parentheses there. It finds the element that has the ID yard time and grabs the value out of it. In this case, it's 25.8. In our example here, it was 55.3. We can also change the value by passing in a new value into that val function. Now this time, instead of changing the yard time value, let's change the meter time value. We have this input object right here that's disabled, so we can't type into it on the page, but we can use our JavaScript to fill in that field. We're going to use the jQuery, that pound that indicates that it's going to be an ID, and then type in that ID. Then we can set that val to a new number. So the code sets it to 63.2. We haven't actually calculated the conversion yet, but we can change that value. Let's see if it works. When we click on the button, it got that yard time value, and it dumped that 63.2 into our field. So here, this example is actually setting the yard time. Here, this example is actually setting the yard time variable, but it's the same concept. The ID is yard time, and it's putting the value 27.8 into the field.